say hi and do your thing. Good morning, everybody. This is Pwnery's Week in Review, kind of a throwback lobby chat that we do here. Um, Started doing this about 4 or 5 weeks ago now. Basically, it's just a week in review. So anyway, some of you will probably recognize the background music. It is a little bit of a spoiler for what I'm doing next on my channel. Possibly. I don't know. I'm still sort of figuring it out. But anyway, I have a few panelists this morning. I'm sure it'll change, in and out, whatever, because that's how lobbies typically work. Anyway, I've got a Night Strike, and I have a Jaime, and you know him as Zorro, and I have a Scott, which you usually know as Scott P79. If you'd like to join the chat, you can join us on the YouTube side chat there at the bottom. If you'd like to join the Discord or be part of the show, hit me up at the email at the bottom right corner of your screen, or I think it's now in the description, so you can just cut and paste it from the description in the video below. But anyway, everyone, panel, everyone. And they all missed the cue.
Hello.
It's your fault now that we have to probably play a game of Super Dodgeball.
I guess.
It's your fault. You just take the blame and move on.
Just take it all. All right, so before
And
I
yes,
started,
there you go. I recognized it.
oh, you heard it. Cool. Okay, so yeah, in the beginning we were talking about the musical intro I was going to use, and I was going to pick an instrumental of a different thing, not a video game. And before I did it, and before I shot myself in the foot figuratively, um, I looked up the laws and legalities, and a lot of people don't seem to know this, but they think they do. But I checked into it, and even instrumentals are not protected, or they are copyright protected rather. So I couldn't use Play That Funky Music because I always loved the first like 30 seconds of it, and I'm not allowed to use it, otherwise I would have. But it seems like the 8-bit titles, 8-bit game titles, and their soundtracks are perfectly fine. Because if you're a regular with my Penny Arcade videos, that you know I usually throw an intro before each video to. It's not the game in question usually. It's not the song from the game, but it's something that has the same theme or flavor. So, like for instance, if you weren't aware of it, when I did the Long Dark, and I do the Sandbox Survival, a lot of the sounds from, with a lot of intros from that came from either Shadowgate or Deja Vu. And then I was going to use Uninvited, but the thing was, it's not a very good soundtrack. Like it doesn't fit the game. Whereas, like the desperation and the darkness of Shadowgate's music fits it perfectly. So, like if you're not familiar with the Long Dark, it's like a polar post-apocalyptic game where, if in the Sandbox Survival you take place as a character uh, that sort of just wakes up in this area. It doesn't explain how you got there, but you're there, and it's just like deal with it. And it's in like the polar northern parts of Canada, and it's pretty rural. And you wander around the wilderness, and you find like these points of interest in towns and like little hamlets, and just pick through the wastes. Now, in the storyline mode, you can actually speak to the original cast of the game, which is fine. But um, in Sandbox Survival, it's just you. So it's you versus nature. And for some reason, I am buffering terribly. So I'm not sure if the video is going to play out very clean today. And I can't explain why. Huh. Well, if you're if you're in the YouTube side chat and it's buffering a lot, just let me know and I'll take a look. But yeah, for some reason my upload speed's really terrible today. So I apologize in advance for that. I don't know. It's just strange. Like excellent connection, but for some reason my streaming software is telling me that it's really bad today for whatever reason. So I guess since you're here, what I'd probably like to do is I was going to do the news first, but that can wait because it's a week in review type thing anyway. So it's not like it has to be on the forefront. You probably all saw the same stories I did. Um,
I covered them too.
yeah, and sorry, this keyboard's quieter than the last one, but it's still pretty loud. All right.
Nah, just get a loud keyboard. Make them suffer. They need to suffer a little bit.
I used to use one called an Ouroboros. I think it was an Ouroboros. It was a Razer, and it had
Right.
laptop height keys, which I'm not usually a fan of, but they were ridiculously tactile. Like it was probably one of the best mechanical keyboards I've owned. And I gave it to my dad when I built his machine. But what ended up happening was I got a free Corsair, and let me see if I got the model number of this one. Doesn't. Oh, it's called a K70. It's one of those RGB type keyboards. The only reason I took it, number one, because my boss gave it to me. Number two, because my computer case, I used a level 10 GTS from Thermaltake, and it's called the Snow Edition. So it's the white case with the blue acrylic strips in it. And then when I built my dad's machine, it's the black version. So he got the black keyboard that I used to use, and then my Corsair K70 is brushed aluminum with white keys, all backlit. So I just did it because of color matching.
My old keyboard died on me, and I went to Walmart to pick up a new keyboard. I was looking for like a mechanical one,
Mhm.
and all they had was the ONN mechanical keyboard that Walmart sells, and the RGB one. And I figured, what, it's $40. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I just take it back.
Yeah.
And I got it, and the thing works pretty damn well.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
Super
expensive,
clicky
does it?
mechanical.
Yeah.
Super clicky mechanical. RGB does great. Works fine.
Mhm.
I don't have any problems with it. It's let me play any video games I wanted to play. So
Yep.
again, it's you know not you don't always have to pay like $100 to get a decent keyboard.
Correct. Um, I actually thought about doing a series called Cheap Thrills, and it's something I've been kicking around for a couple of years now. But the original Cheap Thrills was the fake hog. It's like
Yeah, I tried to get one of those, and then they all went out of stock, and then apparently the company just went belly up.
I'll get you a link for it. Um, the reason I got it, it's not to try to convince somebody that it's as good as an ACOG. It's not. It's also not to try to convince you um, that it's like a high dollar quality thing. It's a budget optic that looks like something else, and it doesn't feel the need to apologize for itself. And the only reason I bought it originally was because I had seen a Taufledermaus video where they tried to kill it, and they hooked it up to a shotgun that was firing 3-inch Magnum slugs, and I think they put over almost 100 rounds through it, and they couldn't break it. They ran out of ammo before the sight gave out, and then later on, he took it off and he gave it to a retired serviceman who used the biggest optics killer known to man, a Scar Heavy, and he couldn't kill it. So
Yeah,
I call it cheap thrills because you can buy them for less than $100. The eye relief's a little pokey, but if you can forgive it, and you can still use it, um, and you have it on a rifle that you just take to the range just for shits and giggles or whatever. It's not your go-to war rifle or anything. Uh, they work fine. Like you can. I've got a couple of local friends who bought them, and what they ended up doing was is they bought like Smith and Wesson M&P 22 Sports. They look like ARs, and they only fire 22 LR. So they put the fake hog on that, and then built the rifle for their kids. And then two of them I know for sure, when their kids turned 18, they had built and bought them an actual AR-15, like a real one, and put a real ACOG on it. So the kids had like years of muscle memory and familiarity in Master of Arms, and then turned around and got to, you know, have a real rifle that feels exactly the same as the old one. A little heavier, obviously, but um, it's kind of going into this thing that I'm unfortunately I think I'm going to buy into it, and I don't have a choice at this point. But the Italians did the same thing in World War II. They had created there's like a youth group, sort of like how the Nazis had the Hitler Youth. And what they had done is they took these kids between the ages of like 6 to 10, and they gave them a um, Carcano youth rifle. I think that's the best way to describe it. And it's, I guess its technical term is the Italian Grazian Verona youth training rifle. And one of the neat things is it actually has a functional spiked bayonet, flip out bayonet. But I guess its other party piece is that it's the fact that it's a 5/8 scale Carcano carbine. So they shrunk it. And it was chambered, the barrel's rifled, and it's chambered in a 6 millimeter blank cartridge. I think it's called a Flaubert blank cartridge. Now, I haven't gone shopping for them, but I heard they're incredibly rare. But I may get this rifle because I didn't read the description and I put a pretty hefty bid on it and I might win it. Now, they're worth good money, but nobody's buying them right now. But I have seen them at auction sell for up to $800. I'm only in this thing for $52. This is not a rifle you fire real ammo through, though. The entire receiver and barrel assembly is all bronze. So I had this idea, and I'm not sure I'm going to go through with it because I may not win the rifle. But if I do, I'm going to look into the possibility of getting that bronze barrel and having an insert put into it. Sort of like how you can put rifle cartridges and pistol cartridges into a shotgun with the adapter. And I want to see about maybe having my friend, my machinist friend, build me one and see if that thing can take the pressure of 25 ACP. Because if it can do that, then I have a functional, youth rifle. But I'm not sure if the bronze barrel is going to be able to take it. And even if it could, it would probably wear out really fast. So at the end of the day, I'm really hoping I don't win it. But if I do, it's also a cheap thrill, which is you don't have to spend a lot of money to get something that's entertaining or quality or just fun. Like your keyboard, like the fake hog. This rifle's another good example of that. And it doesn't have to be pricey.
Right. Fake hog. Where do you guys buy it?
Huh?
The fake hog. Where do you guys buy the fake hog?
So the original manufacturer was called Terminus Optics.
And their website ain't around no more.
Okay. So whoever made them for Terminus Optics makes the knockoffs, like for everyone. So it's sort of like automotive batteries. Um, if their website's gone, actually, I can find out right now. Um, yep, I think you're right. So they're even gone on Amazon.
Yeah, they closed up shop. They're done.
Yeah, they probably got hit for like something. I don't know. Amazon's really terrible at taking out sellers. But yeah, there's a bunch of them out there. Like there's a bunch of knockoffs out there. And like I said, you don't buy these things and try to convince somebody that it's a go to war optic. You buy these things just because It's sort of like LARPing or cosplay. But, if you have a small enough rifle, like a 22 or something, you could put it on there and the 22 is never going to break it. And getting an optic to hold zero, like with the brass and bronze adjusters or whatever, like if you can't make like even an airsoft one that can hold zero, then you shouldn't be making them at all. But like these knockoffs typically hold zero. And the way I test them is I put them on a rifle, I fire a 5-shot group. Well, first of all, I zero it. Then I fire a 5-shot group. Then I do 5 clicks with the windage, 5 clicks with the elevation. Uh, sorry, I take 5 shots with the elevation, take a 5-shot group. Then I do 5 clicks with windage, do a 5-shot group. Then I subtract 5 clicks from the elevation, 5-shot group, and then I subtract the 5 clicks from the windage, 5-shot group. So what you're doing is you're creating a square in 4 5-shot groups. And if you do the 5 up, 5 to the right, 5 down, 5 to the left, like I described, then that last group should be right on top of where you zeroed your first group before you started messing with the windage and elevation. So you draw a square, and um, you should have 10 holes where you started. You should have 5 holes, 5 clicks up. You should have 5 holes, 5 clicks to the right, 5 holes, 5 clicks down from that one, and then when you move back to the left, obviously that's why the first one's 10. That's how I zero them, or see if they hold zero and make sure that the adjusters work properly. So there's that. But you're right. You don't have to spend a lot on everything, because I posted a picture on Instagram yesterday. Not Instagram, sorry, Facebook. And I think I put it here on the Discord too. But essentially, I had too many milsurps, and I know that sounds funny. I had too many milsurps that were stuck on my reloading bench because I had run out of space in my cabinet. So, I was going to buy another cabinet, like a fancier one that's like hardwood with the glass doors and everything, but I really don't have the space. And where I sit, I have a 35-foot long wall behind it. I've got the longest room in my house, and it's naked. I'm like, I've got all this space, and I haven't done anything with it in, 30 years. Never hung anything on it. When I was a little kid, my dad used to build like model airplanes, and I'd hang them on the wall, but they've been gone for 30 years. So, um, I bought these display mounts from a company called Hold Up Displays. They're in, I think, Wisconsin or Minnesota or something like that, in that area. And I think they're hickory, and they hold 5 rifles apiece. Comes with all the mounting hardware, and it looks pretty good. Like, it's minimalist, they're an inch thick, they're 2 inches wide, and they're like 30 inches tall. So they're like a long flat stick, and they've got these really nice foam and rubber coated hooks. So you just find the studs in your wall, mount them. I did a video on this, but I'm just paraphrasing. So I put my longest rifles. I had to put the mounts 42 inches apart because for some reason whoever built my house is an idiot, and they didn't put the studs at the standard 16 inches apart. I don't know how they got away with it, but that's how they did it. So the first wall mount, the two verticals are 42 inches apart, but which is fine because the guns are 52 plus inches long. And then I put my Beaumont, my Vetterli Vitali, my Swiss 89, and my Type 38 Arisaka on that wall. And then I bought a second one, and I got I wanted to build the Mauser wall, but it didn't quite work out that way. So I've got almost a Mauser wall. I got my 1903 Springfield A3 on top. I've got my I think it's called an 1891 Argentinian Mauser below that, and then I put my Krag Jorgensen scout rifle because it's in a sporter stock below that, and then I've got my Turkish Mauser below that. So they're all Mausery actions, and then I've got to buy a third one now, but that's a cheap throw because when I was looking for wall mounts, they've got the slat walls. Hold Up makes those too. They've got the slat walls where you have the clip-in hook system. I think Ian from Forgotten Weapons built an entire wall like that. That complete setup, as big as his was, you're looking at like $2,000 to $3,000, and then you have to either have the wherewithal and knowledge to install it properly, because you're now creating a very heavy load-bearing wall. So you better know where to find your studs and how to mount it, and use proper hardware, and then have deep pockets, which I really don't. So these hold-up displays were $55 each. They make metal ones that hold less and sometimes more. They also make a metal where they make the guns sit vertically straight up and down. Mine go horizontally like an old-fashioned, hunter's rack. And, each one holds 4 rifles. So I've got 2 walls done, or 1.5 walls done. And then I'll buy a third one, and they'll go right above my computer, just above my 42-inch monitors. So that'll be after I mounted the last 4 rifles last night. I went back to my cabinet and I still have 5 or 6 milsurps just sitting there, and I'm like, yeah, this got to go on the wall too. So I got to get a third one so I can put my 2 Enfields, my Carcano 9124 Troop Special carbine, and my 0715 French Berthier, which that's going to be a big This Old Gat episode. The more I think about it, it's going to be a 2-part long play because there's just so much stuff I have to do to that gun, and I want to make sure that I do it right, because I take snippets from some of my This Old Gats now, and I created this mini series called, I think it was called Pwnery's Amateur Gunsmithing Shorts or something like that, because I had shared how I fixed the stripped stock bolt on my Arasaka with the walnut dowels. So when I do the Berthier, there's going to be 3. I think there's going to be at least 3 shorts in that one episode, but it's going to be in 2 parts because I'm doing a duffel cut repair, sort of, on a rifle that's also got 4 inches of barrel missing. So I can't. First of all, finding Berthier stocks is near impossible nowadays. Second of all, I don't. The rifling and the chamber on this barrel are good enough to make me want to keep it. Otherwise, I'd start looking for another Berthier barrel that's full length with the sights on it. All I've got's the rear sight on this one, which I'm going to have to figure out how to adapt it so I can put a scout scope on it, just like I did my Krag. But the mini shorts thing, one of them will be the way I'm going to do a duffel cut. One of them is going to be how to recrown your barrel with dark chocolate and a brass-headed screw and a drill. Now I'll put a target crown on it. And the third thing, what was it? The third thing, I think, oh yeah, I'm going to, even though I bought one, and I'm sure someone's going to call me an idiot for doing this, I finally found a 5-shot Berthier clip. And it cost me $52 after tax and shipping for one. And that pissed me off because I wanted it, but I didn't want it for that much money. But I got mad and I sort of vengeance bid, so now it's mine. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do, I'm going to use it for measurements only, so I can understand the angles of the feed lips. But the big episode, or the big short episode, is going to be how I converted a Berthier to not need end block clips ever again. So I'm going to design a liner for the Berthier magazine that's attached with screws, which I hope I can hide under the stock line so you won't even see it, and it'll give the magazine its feed lips, and it'll still use the original spring-loaded follower. And that way, you can single load it, or you can fully load it, but you don't need those clips because good luck finding them. I searched for 3 months, and I think it was Pink Panther or Squib found me one, and I bid on it and I won. I paid a lot for it, and I'm looking at two more, but the more I think about what these things cost and how uh, disposable that they're supposed to be, I'm not going to waste my time with it. Like I'm just going to go ahead and convert it because the rifle's a write-off anyway. You know, it's supposed to be an end block clip is not supposed to be used 100 times. It was supposed to be used one time, maybe twice, and then you just leave it behind on the battlefield and move on. So they're not being made. There was a guy in Australia about 9 years ago who made them, and then had somebody import them to the United States, and he was shipping them for $15 a piece. And I thought, okay. So I found that old thread. I reached out to the importer, and the guy wrote me back, and he's like, "No, sorry, I sold those all years ago, and I lost the guy's contact info. But if you find him, and if he's still doing it in Australia, tell him that he can contact me, and I will gladly import them again because you're not the first person to ask." And I thought, okay, well, I'll see what I can do. So I'm trying to be the next Purdue, which I know is a dirty word in the AK community. But yeah, I'm trying to be the next Purdue when it comes to end block clips for Berthier rifles, even though I'm probably not going to use them. So there's that. I'll have 12 rifles on the wall, all wood and steel, and the only gun left that's wood and steel that won't be on the wall is my 1895 4570 guide gun, my SBL Jurassic World, that thing. That stays in the case. So anyway, now that my sinuses have ruined my throat, and I'm probably clearing my throat more often than I need to, let's get into the news, shall we? I mean, we're half an hour in.
Yes.
Yeah, let's week in review. What I'll do is I'll share you a story. I'll show it on the screen. Um, Now, I'm going to put it on the overlay view, Mike. So if you're peeking on the YouTube side with it muted, it'll probably work best for you to see the story. But if you just want the narration part, that's fine too, because I'm just describing it and I'll show it to the others. So, week in review. Here we go. First story I've got for you today is a local story out of Houston. There is a restaurant downtown. Here you go. It's called the Aquarium. There's two of them in Houston. There's one downtown. There's one about 20 miles south in a place called Kima near the boardwalk. This douchebag walks in to this place, and it's not the type of restaurant that riffraff go into. You go into this place, and it's like walking into SeaWorld. Like there's glass aquariums, there's an archway, you're walking through it, and there's fish and sharks swimming around you, that kind of thing, right? It's really cool. You go to the bar and you order a drink, and it'll make your eyes water because the cost of a good drink there is the cost of a drink for the entire night somewhere else. That's how expensive the place can be. Same with the food, you know. You and your girl can go and have dinner, and it'd be worth a month and a half worth of groceries. So that's the kind of place this is. This guy walks in, goes to the upstairs bar, and starts drinking. Everything's fine. For 2 hours. And the bartender's not cutting him off. That's the first kind of weird thing to me. Because if I'm at World of Beer for 2 hours, I need a ride home. So he was sitting there, and another younger couple came to the bar. They sat down, and they started, having their evening. And this shitlord stood up, pulled a gun out, shot the dude in the face, shot the woman, hitting her in the leg, and then turns the gun on himself and kills himself at the other end of the bar. So this is my local news that's telling this story, and it's changed, but they're still saying it's a horribly tragic incident. Yesterday it said it was an accident, and I thought that was funny because they had to disable the comments in 5 minutes because every leftist lunatic libtard, try saying that 10 times fast, was blaming the tool for the billionth time. Oh, Sam, the state is Texas. So my comment before they were disabled was this guy broke the law the minute he walked into the place because for anyone who's licensed to carry, you have to obey the signage. We have 30-6, 30-7 signs. We have a 51% sign. So if you walk up to an establishment, near the door, there has to be a sign with bright red block letters that say 51% if you serve alcohol and you make 51% or greater on the sales of alcohol for your total generated revenue, then you're not allowed to carry in that place. So even if this guy was a licensed carrier, he had already broken the law. Then he killed people. So they shut the comments off because everyone's screaming about guns. And the fact of the matter is it's not the guns that's the problem. It's the lunatics that's the problem. And it's always been that way. So that's my first story. It's terrible. It's tragic. It's whatever. It's still, that guy's still human garbage. And now he's worm food. Unfortunately, he turned a completely unknown innocent person into that as well. And that person's wife or girlfriend, who's I think was 27 at the time, uh, now she's going to walk with a limp the rest of her life. And it's just like, why? Anyway, if you hear dogs barking, I apologize. So that's my first story. Second major story was a couple days ago. And in the middle of the night, the president of Haiti was assassinated in his own house. I think in his own bed. And I'm trying to remember, was his wife killed too? Or was she just injured?
His wife was injured.
Okay. So they arrested the assassins. And they are being described, like the scene was described as cameras caught people speaking in Spanish. So then they thought this was like another country or like a rival faction or whatever. And then there was a video that leaked about a crowd of people who caught the assassins and detained them. And then they were arrested, and they're now being described as two Haitian American immigrants. Why did you go back? I don't know.
I also heard that there's like 6 Colombians.
Okay, well that would help explain the
The
language on the teeth
Spanish.
thing. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there was a couple of them, and don't hold me to this, but I think maybe 1 or 2 died,
Hmm.
and then they caught the rest.
Yeah, and some of them were caught by like a mob of people, like not even the police. There's a
Yeah, it
really
said they were hiding in bushes.
Yeah, and there's like a really good video of them getting thrown into the back of a truck, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like they acted fast.
I could
The
have swore I also saw FBI agents rolling them up.
Yeah, so we have sent resources to Haiti to help in their investigation because the why is still not known.
Well, can you imagine those guys like, hey, we're gonna get help from America again, and Haiti's like, fuck, the Clintons did a good number on us.
Exactly. You know, I'm not one to invest in Reynolds wrap or sorry, Reynolds aluminum foil, but there was a couple of like theories out there that this is just more of what did this guy know about the corruption of the funds that went to Haiti from the Clinton era. But I haven't dove into it deep enough to see if this guy has any ties to it. Like I'm sure they're going to come out with why it happened eventually.
Well, he was connected to the previous president.
Right. But I mean, like the Haiti hurricane relief thing, that was during Bill Clinton's era, right? So,
No, they've been hit by multiple hurricanes.
right, but the big one.
No, wait, you're talking about the when the Clinton Foundation was like trying to
Yeah.
rebuild their infrastructure and then
Yes.
rob them of all the money
Yes.
that they put forward.
Yeah,
Yes.
wasn't that
Yeah.
the same storm that hit Puerto Rico just a couple of years ago?
And I think that was during the Obama era when that whole Haiti thing happened with the Clintons.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. You're right. It was the Clinton Foundation, and then they sent something like $200 or $300 million or whatnot, and then everyone in Haiti was like, "Where's the money? We don't see anything." So they thought it was like a shell game of some sort. But I'm curious, like if this guy's got anything to tie into that, and that's what the conspiracy theorists out there are talking about. And I thought, well, it should be interesting, Like I wonder if E Honda would touch this one.
Oh, I bet he would.
Kind of hard to say.
Probably.
Maybe. All right, so there's that one. I'm going through these pretty quick. Okay, I don't have a screen share for this one. I wrote it out because I read 3 stories on it, but the caption I put in here, and what I'll do is I'll just lay this out and you guys can give your 2 cents on it. Sleepy, creepy, touchy-feely, dopey Uncle Joe tells the world on a world stage on live TV that the war in Afghanistan is, quote, unwinnable, signaling for the first time in history, despite stating the obvious, that America's admitting defeat and showing its weakness to the rest of the world. Why is he doing that? Everybody knows you can't win that war. We get it.
Sean,
People
why
tried
is he doing it? Because he's an idiot. That's why.
Of course. But is it him or is it his handlers?
It's probably both. In this situation, it's a rare situation of where it's both. It's the handlers that are the idiots, and it's himself that is the biggest idiot.
Right. I'm
And
just dumbfounded by
I,
it.
I think he thinks that he can push the blame off of himself in this situation.
Yeah.
I think
He's
that's
gonna
what
try
he's
and put it
doing.
on to Trump.
Yeah, like it was unwinnable, and now that I'm in power, I'm actually doing something, is what he's trying to say. But yeah, it does insinuate stuff. But that war was unwinnable due to the politicians.
Right. I mean, wasn't it decided that there was going to be a drawdown and a pullout even during Trump's era, though? Like, this isn't something
Yeah.
Biden decided.
Trump brokered the deal to pull out, and then Biden came in and effed it all up.
Okay. So,
Yeah, so from what I read, because I'm pretty interested in this stuff,
mhm.
from what I read, the Taliban didn't really want to make the deal with Trump,
Mhm.
but it was a deal nonetheless. And so they were already pissed off because, they don't trust America.
Mhm.
Why would we make deals with you? But fine, we'll get you out of our country. And then Biden takes office and goes, no, 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 no. And then the Taliban or the government or whoever's doing the deals, I think the Taliban's at the table at this point.
Mhm.
They were like, oh, great, another American lie. So now people are going to get killed because you're breaking our deal.
Right.
And so now the Taliban is launching a huge offensive. And I called it back in January. I was telling all the guys, like, just wait till the spring. Just wait till the spring. And now the Taliban is, what do they control? Something like 60 or 70% of the country now.
Yeah. And they're spreading.
And they're spreading.
The thing
So
that this smacks of Libya to me, because what we have been very bad at as, I guess, a geopolitical power lately is we go into some place and we have operations. We set up a puppet government and we leave. And immediately after leaving, terrorists come and fill the power vacuum, take over the country, and then say, yeah, those great American saviors left you in this shit and squalor, so now we're going to take it over and do something with it because apparently that puppet government is powerless. They did it in Libya. They did it in... They sort of did it in Iraq. They kind of do it every day under Bashar al-Assad's nose in Syria, and now they're doing it in Afghanistan. And the problem is we have given the Taliban legitimacy by speaking to them and bringing them to the table. Now we have recognized them.
That is the whole point of
Yeah,
what the Taliban wanted.
right.
That is
Because
all they ever wanted to be, is acknowledged as a political party,
hmm
because then they can't be a terrorist organization. The same thing happened with Hezbollah.
hmm
And I remember getting briefs in the Marine Corps about, this is a terrorist organization that wants political power
hmm
so that they can go to all these summits and all this stuff and control their country. And yeah, I remember saying or them saying to us that was their whole goal.
Yeah. Once you gain legitimacy, now you can speak to world leaders as if they're your equal, and now you can't be classified as a terrorist organization, like you said, because now they're considered a governmental power of some sort,
Yep.
which is crazy.
Once you bring them in, it's kind of like, all right, we're not doing business with terrorists anymore. These are politicians,
Yeah.
which is kind of a it's kind of a uh,
It's low-hanging fruit for the comedy, like, stand-up tour, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, it's
People are going to
a
start
lot.
drawing comparisons of what's the difference between a terrorist group and a government. Legitimacy. It's like,
I
what the
mean,
fuck?
yeah, that's a hard one to defend. I
Or
mean,
recognition, I guess. So that story leads into my next one, and I'm sure you've probably seen this because you were there. So like this story is going to be a feel good for you. Apparently, the women in Afghanistan responded to the Taliban, and the way they did it was by arming themselves with AKs and RPGs, and they're fully larped out, man. Like they're in full gear, and it's kind of weird because like they're still wearing hijabs and they're all wearing masks, but they're armed and they're walking up and down the streets saying, "We're not going to allow this." And I think the cool thing is this is probably the greatest visual aid and example that you need to illustrate why having gun rights is as important as it is. Because they're not disarmed, which means they're not silenced if they don't want to be. And now these women are out there and they're like, they're just not taking it. So these women actually went to a training academy in Afghanistan, in a town called Shanal, I think it is, or Shanai. And so they have a little bit of basic, military knowledge, I guess. And they're openly defying the Taliban because, they're the type of people who are like they shouldn't be educated, they shouldn't have women or weapons, they should follow 6 steps behind their man, always obey or whatever. Like they're that group, and these women are like, no, we're not having it. So when I saw this after Joe's speech, the first thing that came to mind, which I know it's not a true story, I know it's got elements of true stories, it felt like I was watching The Green Zone all over again. Because you have a weak leader who leaves a power vacuum, and now there's like an internal civil war in their own country. And obviously, the strongest group, probably the Taliban, because they're bankrolled by Saudis or something, they're going to steamroll these women, behead them on national TV, and just rule the country like a dictator again. So we've accomplished nothing. Like everything we had done for, was it 24, 25 years, is all going to be just wiped off the table in one campaign for these guys because we
yeah,
left a power vacuum.
but what is it that we did? You know what I mean?
What was the purpose in the first place?
I mean, okay, so let's go back to 1999 Afghanistan,
Hmm.
and right now Afghanistan. Like, what did we change?
Right.
We just killed a lot of people and had a lot of people get killed and hurt.
Yes.
I mean, nothing changed. Like the same group that was in power when we started is
Is
now
now
in
in
more
power.
power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're
Well,
better equipped. They have more networking, and
They have better technology because they have survived the storm for 2.5 decades and have kept up with it.
yeah, I mean, we killed a lot of really bad dudes there, but
Yes. They're
I mean,
hygiene.
yeah, I mean, it's like somebody else is going to take the ideology and run with it,
Exactly. With an
and
even bigger chip on their shoulder.
exactly.
And the
I mean,
scary thing is, go ahead.
I mean, we didn't take too many precautions to ensure that you know that last president that loves drone striking. Uh, I don't think we took enough precautions to stop the civilian casualties. So I mean, there's a whole nother generation. Even if at the start of the war, those kids that at the end of the war saw their friends and family members get drone striked, it's like nothing changed to them.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we're getting killed by the Taliban and the Americans now.
Yeah. The guys who are supposed to keep us safe are hitting us and killing us. So you have
Yeah,
a generation of youth that have been indoctrinated and hardened to hate us sooner than probably even their parents because their parents died right in front of them. They have no
yeah.
reason to forgive us.
Everybody in Afghanistan has a story.
Hmm.
Like they have a story where they were killed or brutalized by either the Taliban or the Americans.
One of my favorite stories is, actually no, one of them was called "The Beast of War," which showed the Russians getting their asses handed to them, more or less. And then, was it called 12 Strong or 13 Strong or whatever? The part about that story I liked the most was how many languages the indigenous peoples of Afghanistan speak because of
Oh yeah,
how many conflicts they've had to fight against foreign aggressors.
yeah,
That was
yeah. There,
fascinating.
I remember getting a linguistics class,
Hmm.
and so they sat down, and here's me thinking, oh, we're gonna learn Arabic.
Yeah.
And they sat us
Yeah.
down and they're like, well, here's Arabic, here's Pashto, here's Dari. If
Hmm.
you're in this area, this is what you speak, and if you're in this area, and I'm like, what? It's a lot. Plus,
It's a
there's
lot to take in.
Russian influence in some areas.
Yeah.
Uh, I remember when we first went into Afghanistan, the only maps we had of Afghanistan was Russian because they were the only people that were there.
Hmm.
So we were like starting combat operations in a country off of our air quotes enemies previous maps and shit. So like, yeah, there's so much influence. You could go. I mean, you would hear stories of like northern Afghanistan where they're blonde hair and blue eyes and they're Afghanis, and you're like, well, how'd that happen? It's like, oh, left over from the Russians. You would hear there was a huge, in the northern parts, you get close to like, um, what is it? Kyrgyzstan, Turkestan. I don't think Turkestan.
Any of the
Uh,
stands.
all those ones up there, and then you have the Asian influence
Yeah.
because in some parts of Afghanistan, you'd be like, this is an Asian man I'm looking at.
Right.
Where the fuck am I? So there is so much mixture in there, and it's really hard to find one group's needs and apply it to the rest.
Hmm. There was an old joke about Mongolians are what you get when the Russians and Chinese get bored at the border. Same kind
There's
of idea. Like you bleed between two cultures near their borders, obviously.
Yeah, and I think there was a small group of because the Mongolians, they like worship a falcon or a guy with a falcon or something like that, right?
Hmm.
It's like a guy on a horse with a falcon.
Hmm. Yeah, they're a nomadic
Um,
people. They're a
yeah, you would see murals and paintings of that, in the northern parts and the northeastern parts and stuff like that.
mhm.
And I always wondered, I never knew the full influence of the Mongolians, but it seemed like they kind of had some influence in that area too. But I mean, I was southwest, like on the complete opposite side of where we're talking about with the Russian and the Asian integration stuff.
Mhm. A couple years back, there was a whistleblower story that came out. It wasn't released in the United States. It was released in England, and it was titled something like "What are we doing here?" I think it was exactly what it was called. What are we doing here? And the story started off drawing parallels of why we went into Kuwait and Iraq. And you know how there's always that thing where people are screaming, it was all about the oil, stuff like that, right? So the British writer talked about how the United States and Great Britain had very quietly exported 3.2 trillion tons of iron ore out of the mountains of Afghanistan. And he was implying that collectively the West went in for the iron because they were afraid that they would have to compete against cheap Chinese steel, which is still an issue today. Like steel is one of the biggest exports out of China because they don't follow the Paris Accord. They burn and turn factories all day long. Not always nonstop, though. Like, for instance, I'm in a business where I need steel rack mount cases and tower cases and things. They come out of China factories, and they are shut down for several months on end every year because I don't know why. I guess they're just not greasing the right palms because some places stay open 24/7, and places like the stuff I have to get, they get shut down for emissions credits or whatnot. But I thought it was an interesting theory just because it has repeated in history in my lifetime. If the oil thing is true, then the iron thing is feasible. I'm not saying that's the sole reason, but it was a great story. I'm like, well, it's kind of hard not to deny it. Like our steel industry boosted a little bit. The UK's boosted a whole hell of a lot.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the U.S. already has tariffs on Chinese import steel.
Right, but on a global stage, the Chinese are outputting more steel than I think anybody right now. And
Well, yeah, because our production stopped.
right. Like Pennsylvania used to be known as the steel town, like the foundry town. It
Yeah,
ain't no
ain't
more.
that something? Ain't that something that the guy that?
Pittsburgh.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was talking about Pittsburgh, but
Oh, yeah,
Pittsburgh was a steel city.
right.
it's always funny to go back to Biden's campaign trail. I'm from Scranton. I'm from Scranton. Hard working, Rust Belt, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Literally stops the main production in his home state.
Yeah.
Like, I'm from Scranton, which means I know how the ins and outs works to screw you over. But also, I have heard from many a people that Iraq's oil was very dirty. It was not. It needed a lot more refinement. Yeah, than the Texas oil or the Alaskan oil stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why we haven't gone into Venezuela yet.
No,
yeah, that's
actually,
that would
their
not be
oil
a good
is
one.
horribly dirty.
Right, but the majority of the oil that gets imported in the United States comes out of Venezuela. We get more oil from there than we do the Middle East, or we did. That might have changed ever since when we went energy independent. We didn't have to import as much, but before the Trump era, we actually did. We imported more oil through Venezuela, like Valero, the gas stations Valero. That became a thing at that time.
Yep.
And their second largest import is sugar cane based ethanol, because in South America,
And that came from Brazil.
it's everywhere.
Okay.
That's how they handle their energy dependence. They do sugar cane and sugar beet based ethanol and export that. And then I think ours is done through corn.
Yeah.
So just to talk about the resources of Afghanistan for just a quick minute, I had always heard that they found a huge lithium vein, and that's why we were trying to stabilize the country, because there was more lithium in that country than the world's market could handle. And what was the other one?
Opium.
Yeah, actually, you're 100% right. That was the word I was looking for.
Crop.
Me personally, my unit over there, definitely seized. Oh, man, I can't remember the number, but somebody in our ops thought it would be funny to correlate the amount of opium we took with the street value of the opium we took. And I want to say there was a dry erase board that pilots would update every time they finished a flight.
Mhm.
I want to say it was $900 million in raw opium in street value that we took on my deployment with one unit in a year's time out of the whole 20 years of that war. So you can only imagine. Also, something that always had bugged me was when I went to when I was in high school, everybody was on meth and all that. And then I joined the military, come back home, and we have a surprisingly high opiate epidemic. And so for years, I've had this thought in my head that, like, what the fuck were we doing there? I mean, I know we took the opium. I know people came and got it. I don't know where it went. They could say that we burn it and all that shit, but why would you choose to burn raw opium when you could just debt on the spot? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
so it
Rinse
always
it
seemed
out.
a little weird. And I'm not
Well,
saying that correlation equals causation in this, but that's a lot of fucking opium. And that's the same time that the Oxycontins and all that stuff like skyrocketed in production.
See, that's the
opium is
thing
one
that
of the main ingredients in OxyContin.
Yeah.
that's the thing that blows my mind, right? Like common sense is I'm part of a group called America's Common Sense Brain Trust. And the goal of it is to make sense of the lack of common sense in government or society, right? And what you're
Jeez, you guys.
describing is exactly the kind of thing I talk about constantly. If you seize opium, why would you burn it when you can fence it? If you if you're in the United States and you have a raid on a drug house and you seize 1,000 guns, why aren't you selling them to fund the police? If you seize a car that was used in a drug raid, it's not the car's fault. Why don't you auction the car off to fund, I don't know, families of fallen officers? Like
Yeah.
the idea that they're burning and disposing of this stuff is ridiculous because
Well, that's
you're
just what we were
leaving money on the
told
table.
because, well, no, that's just what we were told. We don't
Right.
know what happened. The people that came and signed for it and all that stuff would be like, oh, it gets destroyed.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but why is there all these checks and balances to get this opium out of our, you know, out of our, out of our area? You
Yeah.
come in and you take it and you make notes about all this stuff. Why would you do weights and units if you're
Skimming.
just going to destroy it?
Skimming.
I have, yeah, I have a couple infantry buddies that one of them is severely against the war in Afghanistan, and the other one's pretty positive to it.
Hmm.
The one that's positive to it was actually going out, finding terrorists and ending them or capturing them.
Hmm.
And then my other buddy that hates the Afghanistan war, he tells me that his job was, we put up a fob in a city, clear the city, and then we would protect opium fields from the Taliban.
So they can't flip it.
Yeah. So I
Makes
mean, I've
sense.
heard it all.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, I know dudes that were sleeping in like marijuana fields right next to opium fields, and fucking basically being really, really highly trained security guards for opium farmers.
Yeah, and that's history repeating itself too. George used to tell me stories, and the only reason that I can corroborate his story is because my friend's older brother served in the same unit with him. They both have the same unit picture, which blew my mind because, I knew one when I was a kid, and now I know George is an adult, but they were both in the same unit together. And, he was talking about they went and did an operation. You're fascinated with like Southeast Asia and Vietnam stories, which is huge and vast and storied. I'm really interested in the South American drug wars and the capture of Manuel Noriega, because
Yeah.
that's where George's military career kind of began. And what he had described is that his unit, with my friend's older brother, was They were deployed at the southern tip of Mexico, and they were instructed to just go south and capture slash burn, catalog, kill, whatever, everything on the way down. And that's what they did. And he was talking about, he's got horror stories about this. And now that I think about it, my friend's brother had the same kind of horror stories. He would tell me that at night, by the time they got into like Venezuela and Colombia, to get away from dogs and soldiers, they would sleep sitting in a river up to their neck in water, back to back with the next guy in his unit. And sometimes they would have to do that protecting cocaine fields because
Well,
they didn't want, organized crime to take it and fence it and give it to the guerrillas.
well, I mean, going back to what you said about selling stuff for the benefit, I mean, that's what Reagan got in trouble for.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a whole movie, American Gangster, about them doing that in Vietnam. I mean,
Yeah.
I forget what was that gangster's name?
Castle, I think.
Frank Castle? No, that's
No, not Frank
Punisher.
Castle. He
uh,
was he was the limo driver of Bumpy Johnson.
Bumpy Johnson. Yep, that's who I was thinking.
Bumpy Johnson died in the beginning of American Gangster.
Yep,
Frank Lucas. That's
Frank
the guy.
Lucas. That's what it was. Yep.
Yeah. And
Uh,
he and his brother went to Vietnam. He didn't serve, his brother did.
right. Yeah, and I mean, like, it seems like every war there's a little piece of the pie that we're sending on
Yeah. It's a
unmarked
really
cargo
good
lists
movie.
on C-130s and shit. I mean,
Yeah.
I wasn't they or weren't they? They were transporting it in caskets, right?
So yeah, they were using the aluminum caskets that they would bring home soldiers in, and
Yeah.
the story that they didn't show was they were putting them into the bodies sometimes too,
Oof.
and then putting the body in the casket and then sending it off.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
was pretty creepy.
as much as I love America, I love the American people. You know, the culture of America. You know, the melting pot's fine with me.
Hmm.
Uh, but damn, is our government fucking getting innocent people involved in shit just for the benefit of the politicians?
Yeah, it
I
has
mean,
a
it
good
always has
soft
been.
underbelly.
Yeah, I mean, they make you grow up thinking, oh, the American thing to do, any able-bodied citizen needs to join
Yep.
when they turn 18, or at least sign up for the selective service.
Yep.
And you grow up thinking that it's like an honorable path and all that stuff. And in some cases, a lot of people did some honorable things in some bad conditions overseas. But man, they really just for lack of better words, they indoctrinate young kids into thinking that you're going to do good. And then when you get over there, you realize, you go over there with this, swollen chest of American pride, and we're doing this to save the good people. And it fucks with a lot of people's heads when they go there thinking they are the good person. And then they are put in a place where they have to do things that in their head is like, whoa, this ain't good people stuff.
Yeah.
Like
The enemy makes you realize that you're the demon.
in some cases, that is very true. I mean, like dudes were digging irrigation canals and setting up waterways for people in Afghanistan,
Hmm.
only for them to build opium farms off of those irrigation canals.
Yep.
And then, I mean, the base I was on, all of our shit and water, and I guess it would be gray water,
Hmm.
got funneled out of our base. And what do you know? This one guy that owned a big old dirt plot in that area, now he's one of the most influential farmers in that region. And it's all because they have they had a big old military base right outside of their farm, and nobody's going to run up to them and fuck with them
Hmm.
when 3,000 Marines and British Marines are sitting there just like, hey, dudes, you're not getting away with this. So yeah,
My
I remember having that moment where it was almost like I don't know what you would call it, where it just like breaks something inside of you where you realize maybe we're not doing the Lord's work, I guess you would, or like
yeah.
we're not doing the greater good. Like maybe something else is at play here. And
There's always an agenda at play.
yeah,
My
and you realize you're just a pawn after a while. And as
my
much as I love the Marine Corps and the guys I served with, I realized we were just used and abused, set through the meat grinder and see who comes out the other end.
Yeah, my neighbor, he came out of basic and AIT, and I think he was, if I remember it, he was EOD. And he said that after processing, day one of basic basically was this is how it's going to be. Like he said that the best way he described it was is in 8 weeks plus 8 in AIT. In 16 weeks, they build you up to a point that you should be able to survive 6 years of being torn down, realizing that you're the monster.
Damn.
That's how he described it. Because he was disarming bombs and he was scraping kids off of streets if he couldn't disarm the bomb in time, stuff like that. And he was like, in 16 weeks, your government can build you up to the point that you should be able to survive the next 6 years of being the monster mentally. And I thought that was really weird because this was an innocent kid. Like, he had
Yeah.
no vices, he had no problems. And he did it because, first of all, Montgomery GI Bill at the time. Second of all, he was watching movies like Battleship and shit. And you're right, the propaganda gives you this grandiose thing of like, I'm doing an honorable thing for a great service for a great country. And that is true. But then when you walk in on day one and your DI is like, your ass is mine now, everything that you thought you knew is wrong. Now we're going to make it so you can survive your next 6 years. And it's like, kind of scary. On day one, they hit him with that.
Yeah, the Marine Corps is very good at that as well. I mean, our what would you call it? Our execute command
Mhm.
for everything in boot camp. If they were like, we were doing like the hand-to-hand combat training and all that stuff, or the combatives, and they'd be like, all right, throw a lead hand punch, and they would just go execute, and every time we had to say kill, or like if we did a drill movement, it was like port arms, and then we would say kill, or
Right.
it was just like, they told us like, you want to go on the battlefield, you want to get a kill, you want to help your buddies, you want to do all this stuff. And it makes like, I never had it, I always had the thought like, if I had to do it, I would do it.
Yeah.
But by the time I was out of boot camp, I was like, fuck yeah, let's go over there and kill some motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And then on top of all of that, when you're in the combat school or whatever they call it, I forget, MCT or SOI, I mean, they sit you down and they show you videos of Iraqi people killing American soldiers so that you get that fire inside you to hate them.
Yeah.
And it's easy to fall in that line where you're like, oh, I just want to go over there and kill them. But then as you grow older and you do a couple deployments, I mean, like for me, my first deployment, I was like all gung ho. I was like, let's do these missions, let's get this shit out, let's go insert these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then on my second deployment, it was kind of like, these people are us. I mean, like, you talk to them and they're like, I don't want the Taliban here. I don't want you here.
Yep.
I want to have my farm, my family, and be left the fuck alone. And as an American, it's kind of hard to hear that and go, that is the average American citizen's dream too.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like
the lessons of
and
basic combat training, like the first couple of hours is they're trying to show you or to make you believe that your enemy is less than human. So that way
oh yeah,
you can mentally quantify a score in your head rather than trying to say, I just took another human being's life. They're trying to convince you that there's something less than that. So it's okay to do it and you should do it because the guy standing next to you is worth 1,000 of them.
oh yeah, and that's true. The guy next to you is worth 1,000 of them. I
Right.
mean, you don't psychologically, you will always go with the side that you're familiar with. That's why they don't send local cops in to confiscate guns from local people in their own neighborhoods and stuff. There's that
Yeah, no, you're
connection to
right.
the,
You're right. They
yeah,
talk
I
about
mean,
that
like,
all the time here. Like they
yeah,
take cops and for instance like Chinatown, right? So we have a Chinatown, it's big in Houston, and the majority of the cops there aren't Chinese. They move them out of there because they don't want like empathetic favoritism.
But too, in the like Hurricane Katrina, they sent like police forces from like Illinois down there.
Hmm.
It's it's got to be a team thing. There's like a whole psychological thing with not understanding their language to where it dehumanizes them.
Yep.
But as soon as they're speaking English, it's like, oh, hold on, whoa.
Yeah, it's
Like
like, wait, I can communicate with
this
guy
is
now.
too familiar. Yeah, this is too familiar. Like it's.
Yeah.
But
You're
yeah,
right.
when you don't understand them and it's just babble coming out of them, and
It's
all you
less
can
than you
judge
then.
things off of. Yeah,
Exactly.
you just judge things off of facial expressions and mannerisms. Well, if you've ever talked to somebody from the Middle East, it's a bunch of facial expressions and mannerisms, and they're very passionate about it, even if they're telling you, like, today's a great day. We should go out and and enjoy our blessings.
Yep.
Some people that some backwater kids could be like, oh shit, he's flailing his arms and he's like got passion in his eyes, like this dude's a fucking terrorist because I don't know what he's saying. And it makes it it takes away that familiarity to where you're not killing another human being that walks, talks, and acts like you. You're killing a foreign thing to you, and you don't understand it. And it's the enemy. That's why they always do, like, the Krauts, or the I can't say any of the Asian ones, Sean, but if you want to, but
Smokes.
there's always a
Wall biters.
dehumanized name. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was similarities to the ones in Iraq and Afghanistan. The funniest thing I thought is a lot of dudes called them Hajis, right?
Yeah.
That is a noble title for a Muslim person. It means you have done the pilgrimage to Mecca
Hmm.
and you have completed your Hajj.
Yeah, you
You are
went to
now
the
a
Hajj.
Haji.
Exactly.
Yeah, you are a higher level of a Muslim. So it's just like, it's stupid. It's a name that dehumanizes them. But if in that case, if you look into it, it's like, right, you're violently calling them a positive name.
They don't know that though. It's
Yeah.
They don't know
cultural
the
ignorance, I
origins of it.
guess.
Just a backwater kid from the South or whatever, that just gets told, yeah, these dirty, filthy, Haji. And it's like, yeah, we'll call him that. We'll dehumanize him with that. And it's like, no, wait, dude, I mean, it works as dehumanizing, but bro, like, it's literally a compliment.
Yeah, when the battle's over, they go back to their corner, you go back to your corner. They have their camp out for the night and they go, "Man, I think they actually like us."
Yeah.
It's kind of funny
Well,
because
obscure reference.
there's a guy
Uh,
in my area who's an Army Ranger, and he used to be one of the guys that would ride around on bicycles. I always get the group wrong, so I apologize in advance. They're the dudes on the bicycles. They wear black slacks, a white button-up shirt. They have a name tag on their side. I think they're Mormon, maybe. They go house to house, those guys. And he told me this story one time. He goes, "Yeah, I joined the Army Rangers to get away from that." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, it didn't work." He said, "The problem is it was exactly the same thing that I left. They take you and they relocate you completely out of your element on purpose, so you develop a camaraderie and a codependence on the others that are sent there with you." And that makes sense because that builds dependence, it builds teamwork, because you're all stuck in a place you didn't want to be, that you're not familiar with. So it's like, we're just going to have to hash this shit out and make the best of it. That's what
yeah,
I
the
mean,
more
Mormon guys on bikes do.
cohesion.
a perfect example is the UN.
Yeah, they just
You
take
know,
people and send them completely around the world when they
yeah,
could be
like
serving in fronts right there in their own backyard.
what was it in Somalia? It was like Indian and Pakistanis or something in the
Hmm.
UN, and then down in Rwanda during that genocide stuff, it was like Belgian guys. Um, I have a friend that's in the Swiss Army. I have a couple friends that are in the Swiss Army, and they get sent down to Bosnia and Albania and all that stuff because they have no skin in the game.
Hmm.
So they, because that's an ethnic or a war against ethnicities and religion and all that stuff, they send, a European Christian over there that has no skin in the game either way, and they're sent there just so no personal vendettas get dealt with.
Hmm. Maybe that's
Like
what it is. Maybe if they
I'd
put
be
you far enough away from it, you're not connected to it, so you're more
exactly.
functional to
That's
do your
that's
job.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus the dependence thing too. Like that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, they're never gonna send, like uh let's just say they're never gonna send uh Saudi fucking UN members to go handle a problem in Iran, It's
Yeah.
gonna be, it's gonna be something else. It's because that's when you get like vendettas or lack of combat effectiveness.
That's a good
And
point. You don't send Arabic speaking people into Arabic battlefronts. That makes perfect sense. Because
Well, no, what you
imagine
don't do is send Sunnis into
Shia
yeah,
Shiite
Shia.
territory.
areas.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
that's the point, though. It's
Or
like when the war is over, they're going to come after your family because you're in their backyard already anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a
look
good
at
point.
all the people that helped the Americans in Iraq. Right when ISIS took power, there's that like 45-minute video of ISIS driving around identifying all those people that worked with the Americans, and I think they ended up they ended about 200 bloodlines when they took power.
Yep. Actually, the Taliban right now, uh,
Oh,
like
they're
if
going after
there's a
they are
story
gonna go
yesterday,
after the
anybody,
translators.
yeah, anybody who's got papers saying that they were like papers of gratification or whatever, or basically fancy thank you letters from the government. Anybody who has one of those is already a target, and their entire family's a target. Like that power
Oh
vacuum
yeah,
thing is about to get a whole lot worse in Afghanistan
Well,
because they've
apparently they're
already got a
going after
list.
the pilots.
They've got a list. Like they're their
yeah,
own ATF agency right now.
yeah. I am 100% certain that if the Taliban took over like full power,
Hmm.
uh, who's the dude that's in charge of Afghanistan? Is something with a K or uh,
Khan,
uh,
Khan, or
it just left me. No, it's not that. But I could definitely see that guy being like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, you take what you want out of these governmental buildings, and there's a bunch of lists and phone numbers and addresses, or at the very least the towns they live in."
Hmm.
And then you just call your boys that have a cell up in that village, and you say, "Hey, go find this guy." And and America has a problem with that. I mean, we left the South Vietnamese people high and dry. We left the Kurds high and dry. We left the Sunnis and the Shias high and dry when we, because we came into Afghanistan, or Iraq, took the people that had been running the country and literally gave the power to their enemy and then let them run the country. And we just fucked people over. Those interpreters who thought, yeah, I'll join the side of the American forces because, when this all ends, Afghanistan's going to be great and it's going to be, modernized and I'm going to reap the benefits.
Hmm.
But then stuff like this happens where, oh, hey, we're pulled out in the middle of the night. And those dudes are like,
They did do that in Kabul. They just
yo.
they just up and left in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah, Bagram. I
Yeah.
mean, we turned over, I can't remember what year we turned over. Um, uh, what was my base called? Fuck. Uh,
It'll come to you.
Bastion. Bastion is what it was called. They turned that over. Fucking Taliban destroyed it. Like they're not taking the infrastructure and using it.
No, they're
Like
taking it away
everything we
because it
did
came
over
from the
there
West.
is basically not going to matter.
Yeah.
I mean,
And the
we
groups
built
that
them
helped
3
us,
international airports, and they've destroyed 2 of them already. And
yeah, and
Bagram's the 3rd one.
the
So
groups
it's
that
like,
helped us end up joining the Taliban eventually because they're going to be like
oh, they
the
have
Talib
to
yeah,
at
the
least do
Taliban
something.
says your great imperialists left you behind. Join us or we'll kill you. Now you have a reason
Yeah,
to hate them as much as we do. So their numbers grow. All right,
that's
so
crazy.
bef- before we close out today, I actually have two. They're not really news. They're sort of more like file that under duh. But I subtitled this "Cuomo's a cuck." But essentially, what it was, and I'll put it up on the screen for viewers. Andrew Cuomo knows what needs to be done about gun violence in New York, but he'll never do it. And the story, just to paraphrase, is he needs to stop defunding the police in New York. He needs to apologize to the police in New York because their morale is at an all time low and their retirements early are at an all time high. And they're saying, but he will never do that because he's a politician and he's an asshole. He'll never apologize. He'll never stand on the side of law enforcement in public because that's not what his party is about. And I don't agree with that story. I don't agree with what it's going to take to stop the violence in New York. See, I believe that if you want to stop crime in New York, stop disarming your people, you idiot. Stop leaving the people of New York vulnerable to those who commit acts of gun violence. Don't make people like John Z defenseless because you have May issue. You don't put these stupid waiting lists and bans and restrictions on your people. I don't understand why 21 states get it and have proven time and time and time again that if you arm your people, your crime trends lower. I'm not going to say it disappears. I'm not going to say it drops off. It trends lower year on year. Fact. Because, we talked about this, I think, last week. If you want to stop crime, you stop the first instance of the criminal doing the act, the first time. You get a guy who maybe has a drug dependency, and he's got a dealer who's violent and knows that he's got you under his thumb and gives you the drugs anyway and says, it's cool, you can pay me later. So he keeps the guy hooked, and now the guy owes him. So now either he's going to say, you're going to do this favor for me, or you're going to kill this person for me, and I'll forgive your debt, or you're going to be like, you're going to give me the money, or your family are going to end up with Colombian neckties, which is pretty likely. So what do these guys do? They're the ones who's got a Phoenix Arms or a Jennings or a Arms Corps Bulldog or fucking 6-shot Saturday Night Special. They're the guy who walks into Waffle House at 2:30 in the morning, looks around and goes, all right, I'm going to do this. And then they're going to rob the place. And they might be clumsy. They might not be effective. They might take longer than they should to get what they need to get done. But they successfully rob the place. They leave. Let's say they don't get caught. And then they feel empowered by the fact that they just made all these people weak and compliant. They think that they have solved their financial problems by robbing someplace. And now they're going to be confident in the next time they do it. And they're going to streamline their strategy. And they're going to get better at it. And they're also going to get more brazen. And they're going to get more aggressive. And then when they get more aggressive, they're going to have a shorter temper. And then they're going to shoot somebody. Now they're going to be a murderer. So before you get a person to develop and hone those skills, you stop them the first time. So now imagine the same guy in the same situation walking into a Whataburger at 2 in the morning, and there's 10 people in there. 4 of them are the people behind the counter, cooks and cashiers. 6 people, 2:30 in the morning, I'm walking in, I've got my hand in my pocket with a Raven Arms pistol. I'm fixing to put it in this guy's face and ask for the money, or demand the money. But I look at the crowd of people in the seats, and 5 of the 6 guys are carrying pistols. Open, on a holster. I'm going to look at that situation and go, that ain't worth the $50 in that register. Those guys are going to fill me the fuck in. And that guy's going to turn around, go back into his car, maybe sit there, and think about how close he was to losing his life. And that could change him. That could put him on the path of, you know what? I'll just go suck dick on a street corner for $20.
Well, I got one for you, Sean. I know you say this a lot, like how we've had, we've played their rules with gun control for so long, and you're always saying like, let's give us a shot, or
Yeah, try it our way.
Bad pun.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's try it our way.
Yeah.
What if you change that to, well, obviously arresting criminals and putting gun control on criminals isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So how about we flip it and get rid of the victim by arming them?
Yeah, it's the
You know,
same.
it's
It's the same thing. It's two sides of the same coin. You're absolutely right.
yeah, and it's it's hard to. I hate saying that. It's hard to rape a college student when they're packing a fucking 380 in their purse or whatever.
Exactly.
Whatever it is.
Exactly. And
You
it's
know,
not
it
even the act of that. It's not even knowing that. It's the
it's
wonderment.
prevent. Yeah, it's deterrent or
Yeah, it's the guy who looks at that girl walking across with her laundry in her, basket or whatever, not realizing she's got a Glock 19 underneath the towel right on top. It's the wonder of, is she packing? Is this
but
worth even
yeah,
trying? You're preventing it
but
before it starts. Exactly.
yep. But the problem with today is all these laws they're putting. It only makes the victim group bigger.
And weaker.
You know. Yeah, I mean, we've tried to control the criminal group, the
Right.
perpetrators. How about instead of trying to fucking deal with that, which our judicial system sucks.
Yeah.
If some dude could shoot three people, oh, he's a good kid. He's a good kid. So we've tried to put the criminal away, and more criminals keep coming. So why don't we try to get rid of the victim
Right.
and empower
So
them?
the phrase "an armed society is a polite society" points exactly to that.
Yeah,
Because what you're doing is what we need to do in America, totally, is we need to stop selling the idea that laws are something that you put onto the shoulders of a criminal. The laws are supposed to be to protect the innocent
yeah,
from the criminal. So what you tell them is anytime a gun control bill comes up, you challenge it by saying, how does this law protect me? It doesn't. You're making it harder for me to protect myself by denying me my right to keep and bear arms, or making me pay a tax to get a license that doesn't have a universal standard in all 50 states to carry a pistol. This law doesn't help the innocent. All you're doing is you're creating a longer rap sheet if you catch the criminal. And that doesn't help society. All that does is gives and ones on a criminal that was going to break it anyway. So instead of saying that the laws are, instead of selling it that laws are handed down to criminals when you enforce them, you should say, no, these laws are put here to help the innocent stay safe. And you don't do that by disarming people. You do it by making it easier for people to arm themselves. Instead of wasting, instead of mothers demanding attention, constantly wasting millions of dollars lobbying for stopping gun violence, what they should be doing is there should be a group called Moms that demand, or sorry, Moms that protect their kids demand that moms demand action shut the hell up and take their millions into promoting free classes for weapons proficiency for single moms. Stuff like that. It's like, take the money and educate the innocent. Say, this is a pistol, this is how it works. This is how you hold it. This is how you shoot it. This is what may happen in a situation if you do. Here's a card. This is the number of a person you call if you're ever involved in a shooting so we can give you legal representation. That card comes with every single person who holds a policy with Texas Law Shield, or there's the national version of it. They have that. And that's what they should be promoting. Use the money to help the innocent, or to empower the innocent, to empower the law abiding, instead of saying, no, we're going to spend this money to make it even harder for you to save your life. Because, it's all cliches. An armed society is a polite society. Sounds like a cliche, but it's true. Um, when seconds count, the police are minutes away. Absolutely true. And the groups that work against us, they marginalize and minimize the impact of what those cliches mean. They just rub it off as, nah, it's not that. Nah, don't worry about it. The cops will come save you. And it's not even that at all. It's not even close to that at all. Anyway, there's that one. Got one more for you today. And let me put it up here. There you go. So it says the tides have turned for ammo prices as online retailers emerge and prices drop drastically. Bullshit. Bullshit. is
haven't
what I'm
seen
going to
any
say.
price drops in 30-06 to 308, so it hasn't
Well,
dropped substantially yet.
the reason I say it's bullshit, first of all, 9mm in a box per round is still twice the cost that it was pre-COVID. So it hasn't dropped drastically because it's still at price gouger levels. That's the first reason I call it bullshit. The second reason is because last year a law was passed where if an online retailer makes more than, it's either 250 or 400,000. Don't quote me on it, but it's one of those two numbers. If they make that much annually, they have to charge state sales tax, regardless of if you live in that state or not. So, online ammo prices dropping drastically, even if it had dropped to pre-COVID levels, is still more expensive than going to the store and buying it yourself. Because you have to factor in the sales tax now that you used to be able to avoid. You have to factor in shipping costs now, which you didn't have to do if you went local. You have to
Well,
factor in hazmat cost now
the problem
because
with
you
buying
don't
local is
because
people don't that you're paying for shipping one way or the other because you actually have to spend money on gas to get to the store first to buy the product that has the sales tax on it. So you're paying for your own shipping at
either
one
way
point.
you're paying the sales tax.
Yeah.
I'm going to burn less in gas to go. I'm going to use this as an example even though the shop's gone. Once upon a time, Freedom Munitions had a storefront in Houston, in the northwest corner of Houston. If you're familiar with the city, it was off of 290 and Jones Road. You could go there and buy a box of 9mm ball ammo, $9. If you bought a lot of it, they gave you a bulk rate. Now, if I went in there and I bought 3,000 rounds of 9mm, right? I'd spend a couple $100, but I only had to burn about $8 in gas to get there, right? That is still substantially cheaper than trying to ship 3,000 rounds of 9mm ammo, because that's very heavy. And they do what's called weight by volume shipping. When you have a box that's either bigger than the weight that's actually in it, they still charge you an average weight of that size of the box. There's also a weight by volume penalty if you have a small box that weighs more than it probably should. Now, the exemption to that is the U.S. Postal flat rate box. If it fits, it ships. That was a thing. That's a thing that's about to go away because I have every courier in my shop once or twice a month, and they're all changing that. If it fits, it ships is going to go away. It's going to be restricted by weight soon. So just be prepared for that. And that's why I'm saying for online retailers, prices drop dramatically. The only way that's going to work is if they price the ammo 25% less than the MSRP at retail locally. Because once you factor in tax and shipping and hazmat, there's no advantage anymore. That's why I'm saying this is bullshit. So you got to figure out where you're going to pay for it, on the front end or the back end. And unfortunately, local is still better. Problem is, your locals may not have the same buying power as a giant warehouse like PSA. So they get bulk rate pricing because they have bigger buying power. They say they pass it on to you, which is possible. But then after you factor in taxes, shipping, and hazmat, it balances out. It's almost like Gunbroker, right? If you go on Gunbroker and I buy a milsurp these days, no matter what it is, whatever price I paid for it, in my mind, I have to add $100 every time because you have to factor in taxes, you have to factor in shipping, and then you have to pay someone for the FFL transfer. So sometimes it's not even worth buying the guns on Gunbroker. Every gun I bought on Gunbroker was a milsurp because that's the only thing I can get that I can think is a good deal on Gunbroker. If I go on there and buy, let's say the Keltec P50 is up there or a Colt Anaconda is up there, yeah, okay, that guy's got one. He's in Connecticut. My local guy doesn't have one. But I'm going to pay, number one, I'm going to pay $2,000 for it, even though it's only got a $1,400 MSRP, because the Anaconda's trickling out of Colt right now. Golden Web on YouTube had to do that. He lives in the South. He had to buy one from Connecticut. He paid $2,000 plus shipping, plus tax, plus FFL transfer. Okay, that's not worth going to Gunbroker for, because you're factoring in all those three things. So, gun shows locally, or hope that your local can get one, because new guns online, forget it. Your local's going to do it cheaper. If he's big, he's going to do it a lot cheaper. At least for now. We're still waiting for everything to settle back down. I hope. All right. So that's all the news. That's all I've got for news. Um, I'm just going to disclose I'm not doing 3 hours today. I have a lot to do today. So let's use the next couple of minutes to describe, what are you doing this weekend?
Ooh, I know what I'm doing.
Go for it.
I am on call, and I've worked consistently 12 to 13 hours for 2 weeks. And I'm headed out to another call right now.
You have my sympathy.
Oh, yeah. It got 117 here 2 days in a row, which was hotter than Phoenix, Dubai, and Death Valley.
Just not my warehouse.
Yeah.
Right?
No
Oh, I
moving
could
in.
imagine inside of your warehouse. That'd be fucking. Well, you got humidity down there. It was like
140.
117 here, with like 20% humidity. So it was pretty dry heat, which I thrive in that.
Mhm.
Like the weather was no factor for me. It's just the long hours, like, troubleshooting 13 jobs a day for
Mm.
3 weeks.
Today,
Yeah.
today would be day 9 of the third monsoon season of Southeast Texas. So yeah, you're right. The humidity is actually pretty high. For the last couple of years, we were averaging maybe 60 to 75%, which wasn't
Yeah,
terrible, but it's still kind of
It's
up
not,
there.
yeah.
My
humidity down
warehouse is
here is
kind of an
pretty
interesting
hard.
thing, though. Because it's a steel building with a steel roof, the relative humidity in the warehouse is near zero because it's
Oh,
just an oven.
oh,
So,
yeah.
so the upstairs of my warehouse, we have a thermometer up there, and on the average summer day, it's 140 degrees up there with no humidity because it's.
Oh, yeah. I believe that. Yeah.
I could stand on my second floor of my warehouse on my tippy toes, and I could touch the ceiling, which is steel. And if you touch it, you will burn yourself, like to a blister almost instantly. And there's no fans up there. So, like, when George goes up there, I can hear him moving around with pallet jacks every once in a while. And if he stops for more than like 2 minutes, I go to the break room, I grab a bottle of cold water, and I go up there and make sure he's, hydrated, because the last thing I'm going to do is not hear any noise for minutes, not see him on the camera in his area, and then find him upstairs knocked out. Like, I'm not going to let that happen. But it has happened. Like, I
Yeah.
found him up there one time just sitting up against a post, and I'm like, "You okay?" And he's like, "He's fucking hot."
Yeah. You start to get confused really easily in high temperatures, and like you can't think straight.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it's summertime here,
Heat stroke.
because I work heating and air conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
they don't even let us go into, like, if a guy's like, hey, my unit's up in the attic, if it's past like 1 p.m. in the summer, they're like, no, we're not sending anybody. Because I've
Yeah.
been in some attics that are 140. And I spent about 15 minutes in it, and I started to lose it. I was like, what do these numbers mean? Like, I don't even know how to troubleshoot. And it's like, golly.
Yeah, we had a group out here. If they had to come and service anything in your attic, they would either schedule it at, I think it was 6 or 7 in the morning,
Yeah.
and the latest they would come out for the first call would be midnight, because
Okay.
we had a heat wave a couple years back, so bad that all the dirt underneath the roads dried out and shrunk, and like almost every road in
Oh,
town cracked because it sank. And like most of the HVAC companies out here, they were like, look, it's really hot and we're in a drought. If you need your AC serviced, you're going to have to accept technicians coming between the hours of midnight to like 6 a.m. And what's
Yeah, I
funny
was.
is the guys who come out at midnight, they would they would pop out your whirlybird because that's what the roofs had back then, those little rotating things. They would
Yeah.
pop the top off of that, and they would bring a fan that they would shove up into the tube and then flip it on, and it would vent the air out of the attic for like 30 minutes before they actually stayed up there, even at midnight.
Yeah, I was when I was looking into moving to Arizona, I was checking out the HVAC schedules and all that, and in the summertime they start at about 4 a.m.
Mm.
and they end their day about 1 a.m. or 1 p.m.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I can believe it. I mean, I've been to Yuma, Arizona. That's funny enough. I don't get sunburnt. Never had a sunburn in my life. I don't know what it is. I always just tan,
Mm.
and I'm a pale dude most of the year. But I had my only sunburn in Arizona in my whole life.
I had my only heat stroke in Arizona.
Oh, what was she like? No, I'm kidding.
I was at the Grand Canyon, and my mom and dad took the helicopter ride to the bottom. I took the donkey. And by the time I got to the bottom, the 5-gallon water jug on the donkey was empty. Like I was wiped. They helicoptered me out. They were like, "You can't ride the donkey back up," and I'm like, "Fine, it's fine. Fly me out of here, Scotty." All right, Mike, what are you doing this weekend?
I've never had that problem, and I've been to the Grand Canyon probably like 8 times. I've never had that problem.
I was
Been down
shitty
it.
about hydration when I was younger.
Down the canyon, down the donkey. Wait, that's not right. On the donkey, riding down, and going back up. I never had that problem. Of course, I've even gone rafting down there too, and that's unless you've got someone that's done it before, don't do it by yourself first time.
Oh
It's a
no,
bad
they
idea.
they do it in groups now because they tie the
Yeah.
donkeys together.
Yeah,
Like they
so
do them in a string of like 10.
I was talking about the rafting.
Every time we talk about this though, I always think of that Ron White joke. You can take the donkey to the top of the mountain, or you can take the tram. Either way, it's the
Yeah.
same price.
Well, so I'm just remember I'm originally from that area, so
Yeah. So what you doing the weekend? You got Saturday?
my zero turn broke. The drive belt that handles the hydraulic pump died because I guess I went over uneven terrain and the belt just slipped.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna have to go to Tractor Supply, get a new belt, and put a new belt on and mow the damn lawn.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this or if you have them in South Carolina, but O'Reilly Auto Parts sells what they call the Gates Green Belt. It's an agricultural belt, and they come in some
Yeah.
pretty long sizes. So, like, as long as you have the number of the old one, they have them right on the shelf. They might be cheaper. Worth a check if you pass by one.
Well, I've got a Tractor Supply account, so
All right.
they sell the drive belts there all the damn time.
So you're gonna be laying under a mower. All right, Scott, what you doing?
Nothing.
Not a damn thing.
Probably get drunk.
Waiting on tracking numbers.
I have a tracking number. I just haven't bothered to transfer it to actually track it.
Yeah. Jaime? Oh, sorry. Señor Dejo. He's gone.
May not be there.
I think the only thing I've got coming today is I finally bought a Lee Universal neck sizing die, and it's good. But it's good for 25 to 45 caliber. So it's got 2 mandrels. And the reason I have things to do today, and the reason that I bought it, was because I'm going to be the first person in I think 10 years to do my reloading thing's called Pwnery's reloading bench, but I think I'm the first person in 10 years on YouTube to actually do a video on hand loading for the Dutch Beaumont. I'm going to try that today because now My reloading bench has no rifles on it, so I can actually pull it out and do the work. So that's probably what I'll be doing today, aside from cleaning all the carpets and the couches and everything with the steam cleaner. My Sunday bitch work is going to be on a Saturday, so I can rest tomorrow. But I guess that's
Well,
pretty much all I'm doing otherwise.
I can say what I would be doing if I weren't on call this weekend.
Yeah?
I bought my daughter that Savage Mark II 22 bolt action gun with the AccuTrigger and the fluted
Yes.
barrel and the threaded barrel.
Yep. Those things are
I
cool.
Yeah, dude, man, it was like $230 for like an accurized 22.
Yep.
I don't know, maybe it's accurized. I don't know that much about it. I haven't shot it yet. But that's what I would have been doing this weekend because I have a bipod I put on it and I mounted the scope and all that shit.
My friend
And
Kevin
I
did
was,
that for his son, and he
yeah,
made it look like an M21, and he got those big like clip-on gears that go on the windage and elevation knobs.
yeah,
And he's got an Eagle Globe and anchors like smashed into the side of the stock, so it looks like it was supposed to. It looks like it's growing out of the stock. It's like it's right there. Like there's no seam. I'm like, you did a really good job inlaying that. And he goes, I just smashed it in there. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I just heated it up a little bit and smashed it down in there, and it took shape. I'm like, that's kind of cool. But yeah, he did that for his kid. Bipod, giant, those gear lever things on the windage and elevation. It looks really good. Like you can go nuts with those things.
I bought a little Vortex scope for it. It's, I wasn't really thrilled with getting this, but it's a 2-to-7 power
Mm-hmm.
rimfire scope.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't happy with the high level of magnification for a 22.
That's
I kind
variable
of
though,
felt
right?
like that was a little ridiculous, but
Well,
yeah, I would have liked maybe like a 1 to, I don't know,
6.
4.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, like a 22 is. I mean, it can go some distance and all that, but I really feel like over magnifying optics actually hurts you instead of helps you.
Yeah. Plus, it gets really twitchy when you make adjustments at full zoom.
Yeah,
You brought up a good
but
thing. There was a Fox News is really losing credibility with me lately. They had a woman up there, and she was talking about the dangers of shooting firearms on the 4th of July, and she was like, "This 22 LR, it can reach out to distances of a mile," and I'm just like,
that's
"Shut
that
up."
old. It's because of that Iraq veteran '88 video or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what she used for intel, because when she said that, man, I almost spit my coffee. I was like, "Shut her up."
Yeah, it could probably reach a mile if you shot it straight up and measured that distance and then the distance down. You'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, that's about a mile.
Like,
But
I've got a
yeah,
friend in Norway who has the same guide gun that I do, the 4570, and he had to get the sight moved back 2 inches on the front of the barrel because he had the barrel threaded so he can put a suppressor on it, which is insane
yeah.
because the suppressor is like 2.5 feet long. It's huge. But anyway, one of the other things he did, because Scandinavians are crazy, in a good way, he inlaid uh, British Enfield volley sights on it. And he can hit a target with a 4570 405 grain pill at 1,000 yards.
Whoop.
It's a 240-foot holdover.
I was gonna say,
So it's like, how high do you have to hold over for a 22 to make it a mile?
it's
240
not.
feet. It's insane. Well, I'm going to go ahead and
Counted
hit
the
this
bullet
here.
tumbling down a long hill.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's like just parabolic arc. Like, I'm sure
Yeah.
you can probably get a 22 to do it if you held it at about 45 degrees. It'd probably do it. It'd
I don't know
probably
what's
have
the
about
longest.
enough energy to, like, feel like someone threw a rock at you.
What's the longest shot you guys have taken with the 22 and been surprised? Because
300
honestly,
yards.
this is my first 22 I've ever owned personally. I
Mhm.
grew up with them, but I wasn't allowed to just F around with them, you know?
I think about 300 yards. It hit the target. Um, what was really funny is it put a dent in the paper, and it put a dent in the wood. It didn't go through because at 300 yards, it was like it had no energy left, but it hit.
Get them 22 LR plus Ps, man.
Those stangers.
Yeah, dude. Just a quick funny story. When I was I don't know, about 18 or whatever, me and my buddies, they had a couple 22s. We were like carving into the bullet to see what kind of penetration we could get off of different ones,
Hmm.
because he had like a thick, like almost like a memory foam. What it was for is physical therapy to
Yeah.
keep his leg up or whatever, but it was like a hard foam thing.
Hmm.
And dude, we were just trying to get more penetration out of it at like, I think it was about 100 yards or whatever. Like we were cutting pluses into them, like standing them down to a point,
You
shit
were
like
doing some
that.
RDR shit
Some what? Oh, yeah.
where they cut the crosses into them. Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah. So we were doing all that stuff and nothing changed really.
It's like, it's 22. What do you want from me?
Yeah. Like, come on, 550 of me for $5. What do you want from me?
Right?
Then I just bought 250 for like $60 or some shit. I was pissed off.
I used to have this habit pre-COVID. I'd take my dad to World of Beer, but before we stopped at the bar, I would stop at the Bass Pro, like a mile north, and I would always go every Sunday. I'd buy one box of Tula 100-round steel case 5.56, just so I have like I call it my barter ammo. So like,
Yeah.
let's just say shit hit the fan, right? Um, and I had to arm like my neighbors because I've got like 10 ARs. I would like hand out a couple ARs, and then I have these Milkbone dog food biscuits containers. They're probably 2 quart in size, and I just dumped the Tula boxes in there, and I've probably got about 30 of those now. So like I would use it as bartering, or I would just like pass a jug over to somebody. Like if there was a firefight or something, like not saying there is, but if there was, and I needed a bunch of ammo, I would just grab a jug, toss it to the guy, and then that would be the ammo he would use. So I would always pick up a 100-round box of that every Sunday, and I would pick up like a brick of 22 LR, the 555s or whatever they call them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've got like 10 jugs of that and like, 5 or 10 jugs of the Tula ammo. But yeah, totally. Just stockpile that stuff and put it away. Hopefully we can go back to doing that.
And my uncle had this good process he would do is every paycheck,
Mhm.
he would buy one box of every caliber he needed.
That's a good
Just
idea.
one box. But after doing that for 20 years,
That's quite a bit.
he has a whole freaking safe size lockbox,
Mhm.
full of ammo. And it's like he one by one built that setup, and now every time we go shooting, he's like, yeah, here, I got spare ammo for you. And I'm like, dude.
Nice. See,
Yeah,
I got
so
to the
I
point
try
now. Oh, go
I
ahead.
try to do that, but with COVID, it's good luck, and
Yeah.
you're spending more than you want on one box of ammo, anyways.
See, that's what I left out. I was gonna bleed into a why you should roll your own segment. Maybe I'll save that for next week. But you're right. Like I got to the point where I can't always use the Milkbone dog biscuit containers because you can't put that many in there. So, life hack, pro tip. So for instance, I hand load 30-40 Krag ammo, and it's a long cartridge, overall length. So that in like 30-06. And you can only fit maybe 90 rounds in one of those Milkbone
It's the
containers.
precursor to 30-06.
Lengthwise, yeah, pretty close. But the thing is like those Milkbone containers can only hold about 60 to 80 of them, depending on how I organize them in the jar.
Yeah,
So as a life hack, I went to Kroger one day, and I found this Cheetos Chester Cheetah Paws, and it came in a container that's 1.5 gallons in size. And that holds quite a bit. So I've been buying those now because you can get the Cheetos for like $4. And then what was funny was the first time I bought it, my mom looked at it and she goes, well, what the hell is this for? And I'm like, oh, I just bought it for the container. You can eat the chips. And sure as shit, she did. Like I went to work, for 3 days. And then on a Saturday, I wanted some chips with my sandwich, and I walked over. The jar was empty. I'm like, "Where's all my Cheetos?" And she goes, "Well, you said we can eat them. You just wanted the container. Look, I even washed it out for you." So now I'd buy one of those like every time I go to the grocery store too, because rifle rounds they kind of need more space, obviously.
Yeah. So you use the whole Cheeto or cheese puff ball container?
Yeah, it's pretty good size. It's like maybe 10 inches deep, 10 inches wide, and like 14 inches tall. It's a good size. And it's got a
Yeah.
lid. It's got a lid just like maybe an inch bigger around than the milk bone ones. But yeah, they're totally useful. They clean up nice, and they hold ammo. Like they're not gonna break through or anything, even full. That's where I keep my ammo in clear plastic jars, just so I can see them easier.
Oh, I got a good deal happening to me.
Huh?
My brother-in-law wants to trade me all my Tula 9 mil
Yeah.
for his Remington white box because this is his reasoning. He just wants plinking ammo for his KP9. So he's willing to trade me 300 rounds of 9 mil Remington white box
Mm.
or Winchester, whoever makes it,
Winchester white box.
for
Yeah.
300 rounds of Tula steel case 9 mil.
All right.
And I was like, I'll take that deal fucking 10 days out of the week, bud.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Just
Hook
check
it up.
those lot numbers on the Winchester white box first.
Yeah,
What's that?
there was a recent recall, so just check the lot number on the box. There's like a number on it, and then just make sure it's not on the list.
Okay. I think he's had this pre-COVID.
You
Be
know,
fine
Like
honestly
then.
though, I don't think an overcharged 9 mil round could hurt a KP9.
No, dude, at the end of the day, it's an AK.
Yeah,
Like
like it'll
that thing
take
will
it.
chew any ammo. My Glock didn't even have trouble with Tula ammo. Like it wasn't accurate. It wasn't consistent at all.
Yeah.
But it ate it up and spit it out. Oh,
Mm.
that I need to shoot. I gotta sight in my RMR for my Gucci Glock
Yes.
that I just
Yes.
finished building. Dude,
My
I added up all the cost of the parts and the gun.
hmm?
It is easily almost a $3,000 Glock now.
Jesus, you would have been better off just getting a Terran Tactical.
Well, I didn't buy
Somebody
the.
went all flippy.
So I got was it agent? Yeah, I got the agency slide given to me
Right.
for a birthday present. I got the RMR given to me for a birthday present.
Yep.
And then I did some trigger work to it and all that and fucking blah blah blah.
Now you gotta get
Oh,
nasty
I
with the
got
stippling.
a KKM precision barrel with a comp on it just to be extra rolling special.
Nice.
Yeah, man, I haven't shot it yet, fully configured out, and I really want to. But work comes first.
Yeah. I pulled a dead horse on my 9 mil AR because, the chamber and the barrel on an AR is way thicker than a chamber on a 9 mil pistol. So he told me the reason he built his was because he wanted to build 9 mil rifle proof loads. And he was double and triple charging the powder. And he was getting nearly 3,000 feet per second out of his AR with 9 mil.
Shit.
So what I ended up doing was I did a test load because the powder I use fills a 9 mil case halfway. So even if I doubled it, it probably wouldn't reach the velocities he's using. So I kind of went a little nuts. I took a 9 mil round and I filled it with tight group, which is one of the most potent powders out there. And I got like 2850 out of it. I checked.
What's it called? Tight group?
Tight group. Yeah, the motto
Okay.
is a little bit goes a long way. It's like super hot. If I loaded
Okay.
9 with tight group, it only takes like 3 grains, which just barely covers the bottom of the case and a lot of open air. But I practically filled
See,
it.
20, what was it,
Do
2050?
you and forgive my ignorance? Do people reload 38 special or 357?
Yeah, I do.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Revolver ammo is the easiest to reload because it's a straight wall case and you don't have to
Right.
go and pick up your brass. You just eject it into a bucket when you're done shooting it.
Okay.
And you can get
I'm
you can get it down cheap too.
I'm trying to find a 357 revolver.
Python.
I've never owned a revolver. I kind of want one.
Well, okay. I would recommend probably like if you want a decent one, Smith and Wesson 686. Your choice of barrel length, but
I've been
they're all good.
I've been seeing that. Yeah, I like the way that one looks.
Yeah. If you want
And
something
I
kind
don't
of
know much
fancy,
about revolvers.
there's not a whole lot to them. It's just the one I had originally. It was a 686-6, so it was a sixth generation iteration of it, and the entire underside of the barrel had a lug. So it was like, you know how there's that piece of metal that covers the ejector rod. It went all the
Yes.
way to the end of the barrel, so it kind of looked like a python, except the lug was on the bottom instead of on the top. So that was my first one, 6 inch. So it was a good looking gun, and then I wanted something carryable and lighter. They don't make it anymore, but you can still find them. So I replaced it with a Smith and Wesson 327 Night Guard, and its party piece is, first of all, it's an 8-shot. Second of all, it's made out of what's called scandium, so it's like super light. Fully loaded, the gun doesn't even weigh a pound.
Oh
And
shit.
it's got Packmeyer. It originally had Packmeyer bootcut grips, which are real compact and ergonomic, but I replaced it with a Hogue Tamer from a 500 Magnum for just squishiness. And it's got Trigicon Night Sight built into it with the tritium insert, and it's only got a 2 inch
Okay.
barrel. So it's like, if you want something light, you can do that. They make another one called the 327 PD, which is more common, and it's got like a 3 or 4 inch barrel, and it's just as light. The other one, the fancy one, is called the R8 or the TRR8. That's the one that Maggie carried in The Walking Dead, and that's an 8-shot scandium. That one's got a 4 inch barrel.
Yeah.
That one's
What
about
do you?
12 hundo.
I've also I'm going to preface this next thing with I know this is not a great gun,
Hmm.
but I kind of want it.
Hmm.
But that freaking Rock River M206 38 special that looks like the old police detective.
Yeah, the police
It's
positive.
only like, yeah, it's only like 200 and something dollars. I kind of would just, because I'm a big fan of those, and I know they look like Saturday night specials, but like the 30s, 40s, and 50s style, like, small frame revolver 38.
Hmm.
I really like that. And just as like a little shitty gun, I guess I kind of like want to get that one,
Trying to
but I
find.
definitely want a 357.
If you want a cheap 357, oh, what was it? It was an imported one through
Vindicator.
EAA, the
The mag.
Windicator.
Oh yeah, the EA Vindicator.
You
That's
usually pick them up 250, $300,
yep.
and it's a beast.
Yeah, it's
How
it's
is
It is
a
not
EAA?
light.
it's a
It's made in
French
Germany.
copy of an L frame Smith, essentially.
Well, it's made in Germany, actually.
It's
Is it?
6 rounds,
Yep.
isn't it?
Yeah. I was gonna say, if you wanted something not too expensive that does the Mickey Spillane style, like you're talking about, uh, Charter Arms Bulldog, like they still make them today. They're inexpensive, but they're not as crudely made as the Rock, because the Arms Corps ones, they're
Are
sort of
rough.
they're sort of spotty in terms of reliability.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Charter Arms ones, they've made them for so darn long. And then Taurus makes a good one too,
Yeah,
Lifetime
surprisingly.
warranty,
Yeah.
too.
65, right?
Like they make I think it's a 65. They make a decent one. You've got a lot of options. If you don't want to spend a lot of money
Yeah.
and you want to get something that's compact and simple like that, all of those are good. If you're at a gun
You're
show,
looking at either getting a Model 65 from Taurus or getting a Windicator just because something to play around with, you know?
if you
Yeah. Yeah.
really
Exactly.
if you really want to have fun with it, there's one called the Talo Shopkeeper. It's a little ye oldie, Western style looking revolver, which is kind of nice.
A cattleman style.
Something like that. But it's got a bird's
Yeah,
head
I'm not
grip
a
on it.
fan.
It's got a really high polished finish, which is nice. And then the other one,
Yeah.
I found one at a gun show once, and I almost bought it, but it wasn't the one I was looking for at the time. Smith and Wesson makes a Lady Smith revolver, and it's slightly smaller in the frame for like a woman's hand, but they come with really cool grips too. So like, I bought the 3903 Lady Smith because Andrea from The Walking Dead carried one, but I walked past one of those, and they don't sell very often, and they're usually one of the cheapest Smith revolvers you can buy. Like this guy had one for like 350, and it's worth twice that.
Okay.
And they're very well made. and it says Ladysmith in like cursive script. So it's like, if you can live with the script, and your wife goes, "Hey, that's got really cool like pink alabaster grips on it. Can I shoot that?" and just pass it over to her.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna get my wife a 1911 this year because our 5th anniversary is coming up,
Nice.
and she has no idea. But I've taken her shooting a lot, and she likes the Glock and she likes the HK and all that.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
getting your significant
when
other
she
into
shoots
your
that,
hobbies is good.
yeah, when she shoots that 1911, I am very happily surprised at her accuracy with it.
Nice.
Like it's almost like that was made for her. So I'm gonna
That's
get
a
her something.
that's an
Of
easy gun
course.
to shoot, isn't it?
Oh my God, yes. Flippy, of course, wants me to get a staccato for my wife, and I'm like, dude,
Let's get her
she's
started
gonna
on
just,
breast milk before we put her onto port.
yeah, yeah. Let's just get her a fucking Texas Ranger carry gun, and
My
her never shoot it. But I guess whatever. I can always shoot it.
Yeah. My first 1911 was a Ruger SR 1911. I bought the all metal one,
Oh, those aren't
and
bad.
oh, dude, when they first came out, they had that bead blasted finish, and
Yeah.
the rosewood that they used on the grips was really nice. Like it had curl in a checkered grip. Like
Oh,
I
okay.
loved it. And the only let's see, it had an adjustable trigger. It had the skeletonized hammer. It was a Series 70. Um, and it had Novak sights on it, and it was like $600. So I mean, it was like it had the niceties of higher end Rugers or higher end 1911s, but it had
Yeah.
a Ruger's price, and I thought, well, that's cool. And then I was the first person in North America to actually convert it to Johnny Roland's 460 Roland. Like I sent him the gun, and
Oh.
he was like, yeah, I can do that. He goes, it's a standard. It's got all standard dimensions. He wasn't sure at the time if it was forged, and he wouldn't sell it to me without me sending him the gun. So I was like, I'll just send it to you then. And I sent it to him in Oklahoma. He took one look at it and he goes, "We're good. I'm sending it back with the barrel already attached."
Oh,
So
sweet.
I was the first one to have it. I loved it, and I took Instagram photos of it next to my 454 Casull, like they were one on top of the other, because
Yeah.
their claim to fame is you get 44 Magnum power out of a 45 caliber round. Same length, same everything. It's just different powder, and I think it's just different powder, to be honest. And it's got a 460 head stamp on it, and it's a comped barrel. But
Oh,
anyway,
all right. Yeah, I'll be right
anyway,
back. I gotta talk to the customer.
all right. So with that being said, I'm going to start playing my farewell music, which Night Strike already knows what it is. I'm going to encourage you all to watch his shows Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock, Hit or Miss, and he also does Thursday and Friday night strikes, or just whenever he feels like it. Huh?
I didn't do Friday Night Strike this week. I thought I was going to, and then I remembered it was my dad's birthday. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, birthday festivities.
So we'll have that. Also, the early watch will be back on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays as usual. 2 hours. I believe it starts at 9 p.m. Central Time, runs for generally an hour. So keep an eye out for that. As for me, I'm going to be recording some reloading videos today, maybe another Pwnery's Penny Arcade, and wash some dogs and do some Sunday bitch work. So with that being said, I'll thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
And not being infringed.